everybody. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, well, I'm glad you guys are all here. This is Hartford City Church at Westmore Park. So welcome to those who are watching online, and welcome to those of you that are here in person. As we get going, I'm going to start by reading a poem by Wendell Berry, who's my favorite poet. We're going to read The Snake. So this is The Snake by Wendell Berry. At the end of October, I found on the floor of the woods a small snake whose back was patterned with the dark of the dead leaves he lay on. His body was thickened with a mouse or a small bird. He was cold, so stuporous with his full belly and the fall air that he hardly trembled to flick his tongue. I held him a long time, thinking of the perfection of the dark markings on the back, the death that swelled him, his living cold. Now the cold of him stays in my hand, and I think of him lying below the frost, big with death to nourish him during a long sleep. And it's got a picture of the snake. So I think I warned everybody last time we met here at Westmore that if we had a week here where I was preaching, there would be live animals. So we are going to meet some of our animal friends this morning, and we're going to use these animals to teach us about how God sees us and how he sees his whole creation as a part of a larger system. So let's all pray, and we'll bring out some of our animal friends. Lord, thank you for having us here today. Thank you for the sunshine and the warm weather. Thank you for your creation that surrounds us. Thank you for our church that upholds us and supports us with community. Please be with us today as we learn more about how you see your world and how we fit into your plan for creation. Amen. Okay. I'm going to read also this morning from Luke 12, 24 through 11. So this part of Luke is happening as Jesus is talking to his disciples mainly, but there's also a crowd of religious leaders around him who had just been questioning him about his biblical knowledge and trying to catch Jesus and try to, trick him into saying something incorrect. So Jesus says, "Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than the birds? And who are you by worrying that can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Consider how the wildflowers grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these." Excuse me. It's so loud. This turtle is causing a lot of trouble. So we're just looking out for a moment. Okay, much quieter. The wildflowers, they grow. Solomon is not as beautiful. Okay, if that is how God clothes the grass of the fields, which is here today and then tomorrow is thrown into the fire, how much more will he clothe you of little faith? And do not set your heart on what you will eat or drink. Do not worry about it, for the pagan world runs after such things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I love that section because I love ravens. They're fascinating birds. They can count. They can remember things. They can recognize people. They have emotions. I love wildflowers. I know that's not necessarily the point of that section, but I love ravens and wildflowers. But we're going to talk today, God's talking about how he provides for his creation. So we're going to meet three of God's creation. And since I already have this little dude out, we're going to start. This is Juliet. No, this is not. Juliet's a box turtle. Millie's giving me a look. This is Lizzie. Lizzie is a painted turtle. Lizzie lives here at Westmore Park with her sister Jane, and she was actually hatched here as a painted turtle. She's a native species to Connecticut. You can see she has this beautiful coloration on her neck. It's yellow and orange. She has webbed feet. For swimming, these are aquatic turtles. We find them down in the pond.
It looks like she wants to swim right now.
She is, you're right, she's trying to swim right now. She does not spend a lot of time in the air. So she's trying to get not in the air anymore. And these guys are uniquely camouflaged to live in a pond. So she has a light colored belly so that if she's swimming and you're looking from underneath, she blends in with the sky. You can't really see her. And she has a dark shell. So if she's swimming and you're looking down, looking for a little tasty treat, she's gonna blend in with the water and you won't see her. So she has unique ways that she survives in a pond environment. But one of my favorite things about painted turtles is how they get through the winter. Okay, so we just read the poem about the snake who basically hibernates in the winter under the fallen leaves, blended in, not moving, and cold. Well, painted turtles do a similar thing, where they dig down into the mud and they hibernate, they shut their bodies off. But they're aquatic, so they're in the mud under the water, right?
Yeah.
But they still are air breathing. You see she has these nostrils there at the top of her head so she can just stick her head out and breathe air when she's swimming. But in the winter, when they hibernate in the mud under the water. How do they get oxygen? Teddy, I know you know the answers, but hold on, okay? So they can shut their bodies off so much that they only need a minuscule amount of oxygen to keep their cells alive. And they can absorb the oxygen that's in the water through the thinnest part of their body, their thinnest skin on their body, which happens to be their cloaca, or their butt. So in the winter, painted turtles dig down into the mud and they breathe through their butts. If you take one thing away from the sermon today, I want you to remember that. This is a very important part of God's creation, okay? And it seems silly, doesn't it, that I'm even saying this? But the point is that God has created a system where these turtles, over hundreds of thousands of years, have developed a way to survive cold Connecticut winters as reptiles, as cold-blooded creatures that don't do well when there's not heat. They make it through with the weirdest mechanism. Okay, I would not have created a turtle designed this way. That's how they are. They breathe through their butts in the winter and they survive. Would you guys like to pet Lizzie? Pet. She's a painted turtle. We're gonna pet Juliet. Teddy, can you come and bring Juliet around to people? Not Juliet, Lizzie. Oh my goodness, why do I have it in my mind that I have a box turtle? Hold her like, okay. Hold her like a cheeseburger and bring her around.
Good job.
Okay. So I have two other friends for us to meet this morning.
Oh, look the way she tucks her tail. See that?
Okay.
His legs are
So that was Lizzie, the painted turtle. Coincidentally, Lizzie, when she first hatched, had 4 sisters. We kept Jane, so we have Jane and Lizzie. The other 3 sisters were Mary, Kitty, and Lydia, named after the Bennett sisters from Pride and Prejudice. And they have since gone back out to the pond. Oh. Actually, Melanie and Teddy, can you just take her back to the tank? Because she's going to make a ton of noise. Thank you. Okay, so we met Lizzie, the painted turtle. Next up, I have, oh my goodness, slithering away from me, my buddy, Jason. Jason is a blue-tongued skink. And hi. He's super cute. If you look, I'm gonna hold him up to the camera for the people watching online. You might be able to see his bright blue tongue as it, okay, now he's not doing it. He does have a bright blue tongue. He's a blue-tongued skink. And Jason is about a year old, so he's still growing. He'll get a little bigger than this. And, oh, of course he sticks out his tongue as soon as I turn it away.
Oh, just.
Jason is indigenous, or which means native, to Indonesia and the tropical forests there.
looking at me.
I know, he's looking at you. And if you look at Jason, you can see his coloring. He's kind of dull. He's got brown and black stripes. There's nothing really flashy about him. If he's on the ground on a tropical forest sitting on the ground, he is gonna blend in really well. He's got great camouflage. And that's his main way of providing protection for himself, is that he's hard to see. Hi. And he's not very fast. Skinks are not known for speed. If you look, they've got these little legs that barely reach the ground, right? These are not fast runners. So camouflage is his first line of defense, and I'm putting him on a paper towel because he often makes a mess when I hold him like that, okay? But his next line of defense comes from what makes him special, his name Blue Tongue Skink, okay? Kids who are here watching, does anybody know if there's an animal that has bright colors, what does that often tell us? Russell, what do you think? You guys didn't know that this was going to be a sermon / science class. They're cold-blooded. Well, he is cold-blooded because he's a lizard. Yeah. Teddy?
That they're poisonous.
Yeah, a lot of plants and animals that are brightly colored, it's a warning sign that says, don't eat me, I'm going to make you sick. So Jason here is neither poisonous nor venomous, but he does have a bright blue tongue surrounded by a bright red mouth. And if a predator gets close enough that he feels threatened, you know what he does?
Wait, is he stupid?
He opens up his bright red mouth, he sticks out his bright blue tongue, and he goes, blah, and he shakes his tongue at the predators. And suddenly there's a flash of color and movement, and it's weird. And if you're a predator on that forest floor, you're not gonna wanna eat that lizard, are you? Because you're gonna say, like, what is going on? I do not understand this. This is weird. So Jason uses what we call mimicry. He pretends to be something he's not. He pretends to be this venomous or, well, poisonous creature that might make a predator sick just by using color and motion.
But wait, so he is actually poisonous?
He's not. No, but he wants to trick predators into thinking he's poisonous. So I'm gonna, do you guys want to pet Jason?
Yeah.
Okay, Millie, can you bring him around? Hi, I know. Jason likes to snuggle. He likes to have his chin scratched. Gently, 2 hands, okay?
Wait, is the hole in his ear?
Yeah, he's got those ear holes on the side of his head. You can kind of see from one side to another, so I don't think there's much going on up there. So we have the turtle, who's specially adapted to survive Connecticut winters in the weirdest way possible. We have the skink, who uses mimicry to escape predators. And I have one other animal I'm gonna bring out. Fair warning, it's a snake. It's a very kind snake. But if you're afraid of snakes, sorry, I'm bringing out a snake.
It feels... Where's that?
You in here, buddy? Okay.
He doesn't
And pull him out of
cut out.
pillowcase here.
Oh.
This is my buddy Tex.
Dad.
He's not slimy. Tex, hi, thank you for that. Tex is a Baird's rat snake. So he's completely harmless. He's neither
really
venomous.
fast.
He's very fast. He likes to hide in dark places, so he likes to go into my hair.
He's long.
Yeah, he's long. And he is native to northern Mexico, southern Texas, places where it's dry and grassy. So you can see he's got this coloration that's yellow and gray. It would blend in really well. I don't know what he thinks about my sermon, but I'm getting some feedback here. Blends in really well to dry, grassy places. We're not gonna do that. Okay, so he's got this great camouflage. And snakes are the masters of laziness. You can't tell this right now because he's being very wiggly. But most of the time, snakes don't want to move at all. They spend most of their time sitting completely still, trying to blend in, conserving energy. Because again, they are cold-blooded, which means none of their food energy goes towards heat or move. They want to use as little as they can for movement. They want to preserve their energy. And then if he sees something like a mouse or a small bird or a little lizard or even a big insect, he would move very quickly, grab it, wrap it up like he was just doing to me, and swallow it whole. They can open their mouths all the way to their back jaw here, so they can swallow something that's quite a bit bigger than their own head. Yes, Teddy?
Before they swallow it whole, they squeeze.
Yeah, they squeeze it first. Yeah, most snakes, even though he's not technically a constrictor, unless a snake is venomous, most of them still constrict their food up to some point. And he's not venomous. Okay. But he has another cool thing that he does to protect himself in the wild. And he is a snake that lives, like I said, in hot, dry areas. And also living in hot, dry areas are a lot of rattlesnakes. And these rat snakes have learned over time to mimic the sound that a rattlesnake makes using their tails. So if you look at his tail here, you see he does not have a rattle. He just has a regular old tail. But they will take this tail and they will shake it in dry grass or rocks, anything that might make a rattling type sound. And if they feel threatened, they will try to mimic the sound that a rattlesnake makes to keep predators away from them, because even though they are predators, they also get eaten. They're in the middle of the food chain. Okay? So they, both the rat snakes and the skinks, use mimicry, pretending to be something dangerous to protect themselves. Yes, Teddy?
That's literally how prairie king snakes mimic prairie rattlesnakes.
Yep.
They do the same thing.
Do you know king snakes and rat snakes are related?
I think
They
his
have
routine,
similar
I think
adaptations.
his routine is to go around your hair and then like the speakers.
He
and then
does
go back
like,
in your hair.
yeah, he likes to hide in my hair because it's dark and he's looking for a warm, dark place to hide.
But I guess he really likes to elect the speakers.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems very interested in those speakers. You're right. So,
They're crawling, letting off some heat.
Millie, do you feel comfortable with Tex bringing him around? Yeah. I'm gonna have Millie do it because if Tex escapes, I don't know that we're finding him again. And I don't need a snake lost in the walls of Westmore. There you go.
And he likes you.
So if you've never pet a snake before, here's your chance. We tell the kids when they come here to do a simple 2-finger touch. You guys can use more than 2 fingers if you like. You're mostly adults. If you've never,
Do you want to pet it?
if you don't know what a snake feels like, it's different probably than what you expect. And I do have hand sanitizer here. That's my last animal friend. So I have hand sanitizer here we can pass around if anybody needs it. Okay. But you might want it before we get to communion, or if you plan on putting your fingers in your mouths. Please don't.
It looks like he wants to shed his skin or something. It looks like he's shedding.
He actually just finished shedding, so he still has a bit of stuck skin on
Wait,
him.
where is his leftover skin?
In his terrarium. Would you like to take some home with you after we're done
Yeah.
service? Okay.
Yeah.
Great, you guys did a great job at meeting our animal friends. There's a reason I had them out, not just because I like snakes.
He's crazy like all the others.
But because from every time we learn about part of God's creation, we can learn more about who God is and who we are. And each one of these animals has something very unique and interesting about them that has allowed them to survive and thrive in their environment. And for most of the created world, that's what they do. Their whole purpose in being is to survive and thrive, and that's it. They're focused on what one biology book I read once said. Well, actually, they're focused on feeding, fleeing, and reproduction. So, and that's it. That's their main goal. Survive so that you can pass on your genetics to the next generation. Survive so that your offspring are stronger than the previous offspring. Okay? And they all have different ways of doing that. We have trees, we have fungus, we have flowers, we have beetles, we have jellyfish. I mean, the created world is so diverse and unique, and each organism has its own way of surviving and thriving, and that's their purpose. That's why they're here. Okay? That's not to say that animals are necessarily all simplistic. We know that animals have emotions. We know that trees communicate. We know that fungus will pass resources from one tree to another in times of need. We know that there's relationships between different species of organisms where they help each other. It's a very complex world that we live in. But for 99.99 lots of nines percentage of it, their purpose, their God-given drive for existence is solely to exist. And that is what they do, and that is good. God made them, God created them, they developed over time, and they are good. Okay? We are different as humans. We're set apart. Our existence is not solely based on, do we have food? Do we have shelter? Can we reproduce for the next generation? We do more than that. We have more given to us, and we have more expected from us than these creations that exist just because they're a part of the world. Okay. As humans, God set us apart. God breathed his essence into us, and we are now made in the image of God. We are image bearers of God. Okay, we are not the same as an elephant. Even though elephants are highly intelligent, they live long, they have a long gestation period, they have memories and emotions, we are different. We are set apart. We are the image of God on earth. And God's given a lot of names in the Bible that describe different aspects, different characters of God. I want to read a few of them. We have Elohim, the God who creates. We are endowed with a creative spirit. Humans make art. Okay? We are the only organisms that make art just for the sake of art. Now, there are some organisms that make art for the sake of other things. We have bowerbirds that make beautiful creations to try to attract a mate. There's fish that build sculptures, but it's also to attract mates. Humans are the only creatures that create art just to create. We're the only creatures that create music just for the sake of music. Okay? We are creative beings because we are made in the image of a creator. We have Jehovah Jireh, God who provides. We have the ability to take care of other humans. We have the ability to take care of other organisms, to provide their needs, to provide for things, because we feel that that other organism has value, or that other person has value, even if we're not getting something back. There are some organisms, some animals that will take care of each other. Ants and bees live in social colonies where they care for each other. But once an ant or a bee is injured, they're cast out or they're eaten. They're not seen as a part of society once they no longer have value. We have the ability to care for each other and to provide just because we value relationships. Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. Okay? We are the only species on earth who has developed medicine, surgeries, hospitals. We have this miraculous ability to provide healing when we are sick or when an animal is sick. We have veterinarians. We have tree doctors. We have people who study how trees grow and provide medicine and care to sick trees. We heal because we are made in the image of a God who heals. Jehovah Shalom, the Lord of peace. We have the ability to forgive, to bring peace into relationships. We are the only organisms that can take emotional damage, and through the grace of God, through this image of God that we all bear, we can bring healing and peace into relationships. El Shaddai, the God who nurtures. Now, this one is one of my favorite names for God because this is translated sometimes in the Bible as God Almighty. But El Shaddai, the God who nurtures, comes from the root shad, which means breast, which means nursing. We are made in the image of a God who nurtures life itself. And it is a female name. You know, the aspects of God that we all imbue, we are all image bearers of God. That is both male and female characteristics. We are people who produce and nurture life. Okay. Emmanuel, God with us. We have a desire for relationship. We have a desire for closeness. We have a desire for being in community with other people and uplifting and helping and nurturing and providing and healing each other, because we are the image bearers of a God who values relationship. Okay. And there are many, many other ways that God is named and described, but we, as God's breathed into creation, bear all of these attributes. And that's what sets us apart from the rest of creation. There are plenty of organisms that have attributes of God because they were created by God. But we are the only organisms in creation that were given the image of God, that are image bearers, that are valued as being God's representation here on earth. And it says this is coming in Genesis when he breathed his spirit into Adam and Eve, and he said, you are made in the image of God, male and female, created in the image of God. But in every way that we have the good attributes of God, that we are healers, we are creators, we are nurturers, we are builders, we are providers, there's a flip side, right? Because we also have spirit and free will and choice. We are the only organisms given a choice in how we live our lives. Animals are animals. They're creative, they're fascinating. They're so interesting to study. They're so valuable. God made them and called them good. But a skink doesn't have a choice but to be a skink. Okay? Jason here is a creature of instinct, right? What he does in a day is eat, sleep, defecate, do it again the next day, run away from danger, hide, protect himself. That's his role in creation. He doesn't have a choice in that. He can't wake up one day and be like, you know what? Today I'm going to be a poet and I'm going to write skink poems. That's not something that lizards do. I don't think. I'm pretty sure that's not something that lizards do. They don't write poetry. Lizards don't sing songs. Lizards don't dance dances for the sake of dancing. Lizards also don't choose to take over another creature's habitat. They don't choose to cause harm to another creature for the sake of causing harm. They may eat another creature because they're predators and that's what they do. But they don't have a choice in their reactions. They react based on instinct. They react based on a response to their environment. Humanity is the only species on Earth that chooses how we react to our situations. We can choose to react with good. We can choose to react with violence. We can choose to hold on to hatred, or we can choose to forgive. We can choose to be creative, or we can choose to be destructive. Every aspect we have that is a good aspect of God also has a way that we can choose to be wrong. You can choose to hurt people with that. Right before the parable I read of the ravens and the wildflowers, Jesus tells the parable, which in the NIV is translated as the parable of the rich fool, which I feel like could be a bumper sticker. But I'm going to read the parable of the rich fool because it really puts the ravens and the wildflowers in perspective. And remember, this is Jesus surrounded by people that are trying to trick him, that are trying to get him to say something wrong so they can point at him and be like, you said something wrong. You're not who you say you are. We don't have to listen to you. right? So someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus said, "Man, who appointed me judge or arbitrator between you?" Which I think is a great response. Basically, like, why is this my business? But then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." And then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I will say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded from you, and then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? And this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God." And then Jesus said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothes." Okay. So we see this contradiction here between the animals that are just living their lives because that's what they do. They eat and they poop. And we see humans who are so caught up in worrying about what are we going to do next? How do I make sure I have what I need? How do I make sure I have the right food? How do I make sure I have the right clothes? How do I make sure I have the right house? How do I make sure I have enough money saved up? That becomes our focus. And that's not to say that, well, there are plenty of animals that do make storehouses for the winter, not to be pedantic, but squirrels, chipmunks, beavers, bees, they all store up food during the fall to get them through the cold winter. But they're doing that from an instinctual level to survive the next season, not from a point of view of I have to have so much wealth built up that I never have to worry again, or that's all for me. I'm storing for me alone. Okay. So there's that. But people do. We know people store wealth for themselves. We're living in a time of unprecedented wealth inequality. There are not only billionaires, we now have the world's first trillionaire, which is an insane number of somebody holding wealth for themselves and storing that. And even beyond that, just most of us are in a position we were lucky enough to have the money we need to buy food, housing, clothing, and a little left over. And that's not a bad thing. Okay? But if that's our focus, if that's our priority, if that's what we wake up every morning thinking about, then we have made our image bearer reflective of wealth and our personal gain, not reflecting the kingdom of God. Okay, because Jesus says where our treasure is, there our heart will be also. Okay? If our focus is on mirroring wealth for ourselves and not on mirroring God's image to the world, then that is where our heart is and that is where our treasure is. Okay? But God's plan for us is bigger. Okay, God's wealth for us is more. And it doesn't mean wealth here on earth. It doesn't mean fancy cars and big houses. But it means that God's storehouse in heaven of grace and love for us forever is where our treasure should be. Okay, right? And that's hard to think about on a day-to-day basis because we do have to eat. We do have to have houses. We do have to have clothes. We do have to get to and from our work. You know, we can't walk around naked. We'd probably get arrested, right? We do have to think about these physical things. And so Jesus isn't telling us, don't ever think about that again. It's evil if you worry. But he's saying that if that's our priority, if our priority is on the physical needs we have here on earth and storing it up for ourselves beyond what we need, then we have lost focus on the true meaning of being image bearers of God, of following the Creator. Okay? And we see when Jesus came on earth, when he walked among us as a human, he was the perfect image bearer of God, right? He was a healer, a creator. He built things with his hands. He was a prophet. He was a teacher. He nurtured and led. He welcomed the children to him. He healed the lame and the sick. He provided shelter and home for the outcast. He was not, like the birds and the animals, living just out of instinct and survival. And he was not, like the rich fool, living for himself, building up his own storehouses of wealth. Okay? But he was, quite literally, the image of God on earth. But he also reflected those characteristics of God that we're supposed to also be mirror images of here on earth. He was El Shaheen, he was El Shaddai, he was Jehovah Jireh, he was Jehovah Rapha, he was the God of peace, of protection, providence, and creativity. He was the God of love. So, when Jesus tells us not to worry, he knows we need food. This chapter is not very far away from when Jesus provided food for 5,000 people, well, 5,000 men, so probably quite a few more people than that, because there were the women and children as well. He knew they were hungry. He provided them food. He said, I am the food you need. Okay? Jesus says, it's not about do you eat or not. God will provide for you. It's about where are you focusing your priorities for your life. Okay? So we serve a God of instinct. We serve a God who created billions and billions of unique, fascinating creatures all over the world. Some we haven't even discovered yet. And every single one God made, and he said, this is good. God set systems in place where creation is still forming, where animals are still evolving, where new creatures are developing right under our very noses, showing this creativity and this love that God has for his natural world. Okay? But we alone were designed with the image of God. We alone reflect the characteristics of love, forgiveness, grace, creativity, nurturing, providing, healing. We alone out of all of creation have been given the gift of being image bearers of God. And with that comes responsibility, right? With great gifts come great responsibility. I think, what was that, Spider-Man? I'll be corrected later if I got that wrong.
Correct.
Yeah. So we have also the responsibility of being God's caretakers, of taking care of each other, of showing love and grace, even when things are hard, of giving up of our own self to provide for people who need it. You know, Jesus very clearly says, sell your possessions and give to the poor. You know, that wasn't a suggestion. You know, we are mandated to provide for people. We are mandated to care and love and forgive. Okay, that is part of being the image of God on earth. We are also mandated to care for the rest of creation as God's image bearers. We are providing, we are protecting all of these creatures that exist with instinct only. We can care for them and nurture them. Okay. The ability to choose and to move beyond our basic instincts is to reflect Jesus in the world and to choose Christ and to choose the kingdom of God instead of choosing our own personal gain and wealth. It's what it means to be image bearers of God. So we, in a moment, are going to go on to take communion. And when we take communion, we remember that we are joining with all of people who are image bearers across the world. And this is something every church does in every corner of the globe, is they take communion and they join in with the body of Christ. And in doing that, we are all recommitting ourselves to being the image bearers, and we are recognizing God's image in each other. We are seeing, Rachel, I see how you are a nurturer and a provider and a passionate protector of your family. I see that Braden is creative. I see that Millie is joyful. I see that all of us here today have the image of God in us. And we celebrate that when we take communion, not just remembering Jesus' death and resurrection, but remembering that he invited us into that moment, that through his resurrection, we now can see past our own image to see ourselves as God's image bearers and to see our place in the world. So we will celebrate that with communion. If this means something to you, if you believe this today and you say, I am a bearer of God's image, and I want to understand that more and to reflect that more, there's another sacrament we do in our church called baptism. And we'll be doing that in a couple weeks, where you have a chance to then actively commit yourself to being an image bearer of God. Commit yourself to being a part of Jesus, walking on earth, loving the way he wants us to love. So if that's something you're interested in, you can talk to Rachel or myself or Pastor Phil. But we're going to end today with just saying, I want you all to go in peace, knowing that you are the image of God and that you are reflecting God's will and God's love to those around you with everything you do.